Welcome to DFS Karma, where we talk about our favorite fantasy sports plays for football, basketball, baseball, and pretty much everything else. Be sure to check out and create an account with all of our partners, such as MonkeyKnifeFight.online, PrizePicks.online, and StatHero.online. Use the promo code KARMA on any of these sites to get an exclusive deposit bonus. And don't forget to check out all of our free fantasy content on DFSKarma.com, as well as our own premium plays. Without further ado, let's get the show on the road. Please welcome today's hosts.
What is up, Karma Nation? Welcome back to the Cash Process Week 6 edition. I'm your host, AC, with DFS Karma and BetKarma.com. I have my co-host, co-captain, Ben Hostler. We'll talk about everything from last week to FanDuel not paying anybody, to what we see this week ahead with pricing. It's Tuesday, Ben, at 3 o'clock, and we've actually had to delay the podcast a touch just because there was no pricing. So a lot of things. DFS never ends. I mean, we joke about off air. I can't wait for the Netflix documentary on the DFS industry in specific down the road. But nonetheless, let's get into it. How was your week last week, even though I don't even know where to describe FanDuel anymore at this point? You know, we talk DraftKings a lot in the show, but we do some FanDuel talks. But, I mean, we got to start with that. But how did your week go in general, GPP, cash games, and then what did you think? Any takeaways in general on the slate? You know, the Dak thing absolutely sucked, man. Like, I almost got, teary-eyed watching that live. I mean, that was just, awful, real-life football talk. But a lot of takeaways this week.
Yeah, so week 5 was my best week since week 1. Had a really good week. Got back on track on DraftKings, so I'm 2-3 there, and then extended the run on FanDuel to go 5-0. I've never been 5-0 on any site for football. I think I started 4-0 on FanDuel last year and then lost, but got to 5-0, so it was a really big week. Obviously, a lot of our customers play FanDuel, so that was big. I don't know what was going on. My favorite part of the whole FanDuel thing was the conspiracy theorists on Twitter that were like, dude, it's not live scoring. They got hacked. Everyone has our bank information. I'm like, dude, you can literally search NFL scores on your Safari on your phone and the stats aren't there. So just calm down. No one has your bank account information, but I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, dude, for Dak, man, I feel super bad for him. He's one of the best guys in terms of just being a good guy in the NFL. Like to watch him play, so sucks for him, but I don't know, man. So real quick, real life football, do you think that Jerry is going to pay him now? Because I've kind of been talking about this with people in Discord.
Yeah, I mean, they clearly have the leverage. I mean, as sad as it is to say, I mean, I'm assuming a deal still gets done. I know you tweeted about the Browns and Dak, which is interesting. But, I think they eventually do get a deal done. I just think that Dak, unfortunately, I don't want to say he got greedy, but he probably should have signed some kind of deal. I don't know if he'll see what he thought he was going to see, in a vacuum, but, he's still going to get paid. So there's that.
How was your week? I don't really know how you did. I think you were at the Browns game, weren't you?
Yeah, it was a wild week, man. I mean, I really didn't get to do much information seeking at all, from Tuesday night onward. One of my best friends got married. The whole weekend was just an extravaganza. It was a big party. It was fun. We actually were in the Brown Stadium on the field on Saturday. We went there for pictures, so that was actually really cool. DraftKings on the winning side of things again, so I think I moved to 2-3. Again, not ideal, but I was 0-3, so there's a 2-game win streak there in cash games, and it was honestly pretty easy. I feel like I didn't really change much. We talked about, I mean, it's crazy, man. We've been doing these, you and I have been doing these videos for many a years. And this is the year that kind of sticks out where I'm like, Ben and I are on these plays literally on Monday talking about in the cash process, and we're actually sticking with most of our, thoughts. And that isn't always the case the last few years. I feel like we're pointing things out really early, and it's been paying off dividends. You're 5-0 on FanDuel. That's just ridiculous at this point. I eventually lost on FanDuel, so I'm 3-2 there, but it didn't feel like a loss because I didn't even win or lose. I just kind of woke up 9 days later, and I didn't have the same amount of money in my account. So, I will say obviously I play high volume there. I mean, I saw so many things, I guess, being tweeted out and whatnot on it. I mean, I'll still play there, but I got to admit, like, that was kind of one of the last straws for me as far as the experience goes. Like, what's the point, especially if I'm playing high dollars? There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, for me personally moving forward, I won't be playing, half of the volume I was playing there for at least a few weeks and just kind of feel it out. Because I don't know. I just didn't like that win, lose, or draw, but still profitable and having a good season on FanDuel. But DraftKings, it's been, a great season when you include some of the GPP winnings. All right, enough of the talk to start. Let's get into it. I mean, pricing came out, right? I think, what did we say last week? We said we like the dynamic of the slate early on. And I got to admit, I mean, right now, early Tuesday, I kind of like this slate already. I really hope that we don't have just 3 running backs in play, like I guess kind of ended up being the case last week with a 4th, which was really the pivot on FanDuel. It just kind of depends on really the route you went there. What are your thoughts overall in the slate? And then let's get into quarterback pricing.
Yeah, I haven't even looked at Vegas odds yet because I was just waiting for the pricing to drop. So I haven't even checked that. But it seems like a good slate. It seems like less obvious spots off the rip. Obviously, you have the Falcons, so that game's going to be heavily targeted no matter what, just because the Falcons' defense has been so bad, and the Vikings' defense hasn't been good on the opposite side of that either. So I think that game will obviously garner attention, but it seems like a pretty decent slate. I think there's hopefully less obvious spots the closer we get to the weekend.
Yeah, and briefly, I'll touch on Vegas. I was in Bet Karma Discord this morning. Again, shout out to all the packages. You can find on both websites. There's big subscription options where you can join the chat and talk to us throughout the week. But my first glance and takeaway from a betting perspective, which we do both bake into DFS logic and game theory, is this is a scary weekend for betting, just FYI. I mean, I'm probably going to be doing more teasers than I really ever do. I mean, I'm not a huge teaser guy, but I was looking at some of the spreads. And when you see a bunch of dogs at home, you see a bunch of away teams that you could look at and flip a coin. Honestly, there's a bunch of kind of coin flips this week. So I think it's a scary week for betting for you bettors out there. Again, I just think there's interesting spots more or less with the teasers. And then I wanted to finish with the over-unders. I think there are some spots here. Of course, Ben, you mentioned Minnesota. And I think for all the right reasons, obviously people keep targeting Atlanta. That's something we did last week. We talked about Teddy Bridgewater. I was actually surprised that he wasn't more owned within the industry, especially in cash games. But right now I actually have a bet on the under in that game. So it just goes to show you, like, my betting brain is a little bit bearish on that game in general for a number of reasons, including Vegas already moving the spread down a pivotal 2 points off that 56 total. Again, it'll still be owned. There's guys, we'll talk about them. But there is something that kind of piqued my radar. Again, we talked about in Bet Karma, the Green Bay game in Tampa Bay. I mean, that's another high scoring 54 total. The total's actually rising there. And again, I haven't really looked into the slate and the opportunities, but I need a couple pieces, if not one for sure, if not 2, from that game. I mean, I'm just going to have to. There's too many points. And then the rest of the slate, I think an interesting spot, ironically, is going to be in Jacksonville and Detroit. I mean, the high total, 54 there. We'll try to see if we can find any plays. It's always tough with Detroit these days and, Robinson with Jacksonville. But there's going to be points scored. And then, of course, I can't go 10 minutes, Ben, into a podcast without talking about the now 4-1 Browns who traveled to Pittsburgh. That game, I think, is sneaky. I like the over in that game, man. I think we need exposure potentially in our main lineups, either on FanDuel or DraftKings. But, watching both these teams, Steelers defense is great in a vacuum, but I feel like they're attackable. Like, I have a feeling that the Browns are going to air it out, and we damn well know that Big Ben is going to throw for 400 yards this week. I mean, the Browns secondary is pretty awful, and Big Ben has a history of exposing the Browns, especially in Pittsburgh. I think that game, I don't want to call it under the radar, but there are other games that have higher totals than that one. And I've already got a bet on the over in that one as well. So that's that to start. If you have any thoughts, if not, let's get into quarterback and pricing early on this week.
Yeah, so quarterback, I think, you can stand up for Lamar if you want pretty much every slate. He's really the guy. There's no Mahomes on the slate, no Josh Allen. because they play Monday night, I think, Chiefs Bills. That'll be a good game for showdown, but neither of them are on the main slate. And then you kind of drop down. You got Rodgers at 75, which you said the over-under is really high in that game, but I don't think I want to play him in cash at 75. I would just spend 200 for Lamar and get that rushing floor. Same situation with Watson. And then you get a bunch of these guys that I don't want to spend up on. Like 65 for Brady, I'm not spending that in cash. Even Ben, I think that's a really good matchup against the Cleveland defense. I'm not spending 67 on him in cash games, I don't think. So we're going to go down. I don't know if you disagree with that, but I'm going to be dropping down. I know you mentioned Kirk Cousins before we got in here at 61, but our boy Fitzmagic at 59 really sticks out to me. If you look at his last 4 games, 27, 25, 26, 30 DraftKings points, he has the rushing floor, more so than some of these other guys in this pricing range. And the Jets' defense is awful. Kyler had a good day last weekend running against them and throwing. And I think that 5,900 is just too cheap for what he's done. He should probably be, he's done way more than Cousins should. I know the Falcons are literally the worst defense in the league against quarterbacks in terms of fantasy scoring right now, but Fitzpatrick should be more expensive than him, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a better take than I would have given on Fitzpatrick, and I agree. I considered him. Actually, it was 2 weeks ago that we were on him, and I feel like I'm not saying we moved the needle. We don't. Let's be real. But you and I do our podcast actually just mathematically before a lot of information's out there. And we were on Fitzpatrick 3 weeks ago, early on Monday, and then the week after that. And it's I think most of the industry caught up, and maybe he does become popular. I didn't realize that they were at home. Now I'm starting to look a little bit further into the slate. I really haven't given any thought, but I like that a lot, especially home game, 28-point implied point total. I mean, do we have a GIF or anything to talk about Adam Gase? I mean, there's nothing you even need to say, right? I mean, he's just potentially the worst coach I've ever seen in my life. There's always a revenge narrative with Fitzmagic. And yes, you're right. I love the rushing ability. And ironically enough, a couple of weeks ago when he was actually complete chalk on DraftKings, I played him in my main lineup on FanDuel, and he was 4% owned in cash games. So again, there are a demographic that, I'll say it again, they play FanDuel or they don't play DraftKings. There's not as much crossover, I don't think, as people think. I don't think people are actually spending the bankrolls and diversifying their portfolio. It's just an assumption I've made in the last couple of years, which is why I think FanDuel ironically is a little bit easier. So I even prefer Fitzmagic probably on FanDuel, and I don't even have that pricing up right now in front of me. Ben, let's just talk about real quick. Is Cam Newton back this week?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it seemed like it was up in the air if he was going to be able to play last night. So I would assume by next Sunday he should be good to go.
So he's somebody that I would monitor. Do you have his pricing? Because I'm not seeing it right now.
He's 6,500.
That's interesting. I mean, that kind of falls in that range of where a lot of these other guys kind of are. I mean, yes, I jokingly talked about Kirk Cousins. I can't believe you brought that up on the air. Now I look like a complete dunce. But with that being said, yeah, I doubt I end up playing Kirk Cousins in cash. It is just interesting to kind of take a look at the pricing because I have been attacking, I think a lot of people, that Atlanta secondary. It's a home game, dome game. It's Kirk Cousins. I mean, probably a better GPP play. Let's be real. And you always kind of want some of that rushing upside. So I agree with you. But I do want to take a hard look at Cam when that news comes out later in the week. But other than that, man, it's kind of a mixed bag, with pricing the way it is. I think we actually need to be more selective later in the week. We'll talk about it in Discord. And then remember, dfskarma.com, all of our content, everything comes out at the website. So we'll have updates later in the week. All right, let's go to running back. What are you looking at first glance running back this week?
Yeah, I think it's a lock that Dalvin Cook will not play in this game. And I think so. Apparently, DraftKings released the salaries for an hour last night, and then they were gone. And I don't know if this is true because I can't confirm, but somebody said that Madison was $6K last night, and now he's 72. So I'm really glad that they bumped him up because even with the bump up, I think he's strongly in play for cash games. But if he was 6K, it would have just been a stone lock. So I do think he's probably the top guy. Jones, I think you can play just with how the Packers are using him. But I do think Devontae will be back, so that kind of cuts into his receiving floor a little bit. Because with Devontae out and then Lazard out, Jones was the main receiver for a minute there. on the Packers. So I think that will hurt him a little bit. And obviously we know Tampa Bay, Vita Vea is on IR, which is big for their defense, but they're still good against the run. So I don't think you need to jam him in as of now. So I think Madison's in play. Mike Davis, we talked about the revenge narrative before we got on here, but he caught 10 balls last week. As long as they're using him like they do CMC, I'm going to play him in DFS. I don't really care who they play. They're at home. 7K I think is doable. And then the free square I think is David Montgomery. I do not want to play David Montgomery at all, but the Panthers are the prototypical bad run defense that they've been the last couple of years. And with Cohen out, they've actually been using Montgomery pretty heavily in the passing game. That last game, he caught 7 balls, saw 8 targets, saw 6 targets the game before. So I think 5,800 is a little bit too cheap for Montgomery. And probably, I'm assuming, will be the highest owned player on the slate, would be my guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the guy just historically, I can't recall I ever winning a slate with David Montgomery, but I totally get it. I mean, as of this second, I made a temporary lineup on DraftKings. I mean, he's in it. I would love to find a reason not to play him just because I don't trust him. I do think he's talented. I don't understand. I've never really had a good grasp on, I guess, that Chicago system in general, to be honest. Aaron Jones at 7,600. I just feel like people will buy into the narrative that Tampa Bay's run defense is so strong, yada, yada. You know how this goes, Ben. And I get it, but that total just at 54 and it's already risen a key level away game. They probably should hypothetically, I know they're favorites, but hypothetically they're probably playing from behind a decent portion of the game. I mean, it's only 1 and 2 point spread right now. I like Aaron Jones a lot. I mean, I feel like if for whatever reason, if that narrative does drive up that Tampa Bay is such a good run defense, 76. I just look at 7,600, Ben. Just talk to me about that. I feel like that price is wrong. Take the matchup out of it. I feel like that price is wrong. I feel like 7,600 is too cheap.
Yeah, I think that I don't think any of these like starting running backs like Aaron Jones, Zeke, something like that, I don't really think they should ever be under 8K. Like Zeke should never be lower than 9K in my opinion. I don't care what he's done. Jones should never be lower than like 87, 85. I don't care. Even if they're coming off bad games. Like, even Henry's at 73. I know he doesn't catch passes, but he should always be like 8K. I don't know. It just seems like the running back pricing is just generally lower this year. Even Davis. Like, how is Davis 7K after what he's done, like, the last 3 weeks? This is like an $8,500 running back, and you're getting him at 7K. I don't understand it. So, yeah, I do agree that 76 is too cheap for Jones, regardless of the matchup.
Not to sound counterintuitive to the point I was just driving, but is Chicago's run D not as strong this year as it has been in years past? I mean, I'm just curious. Again, I know Mike Davis is a better, PPR guy regardless, but I am just curious since we're talking about it.
Yeah, I don't think it's I don't have the numbers up. I don't think it's as dominant as it was like a few years ago, but I don't think it's that bad either. I remember last year, kind of towards the end of the year, we were fine targeting running backs against them. I remember Latavius Murray had that big game against them last year, like late when Kamara was out, I think. So I don't think it's great, but I don't think it's bad either. But I mean, with how many balls he catches, like you said, for DraftKings, it doesn't matter. The conversation would be more on FanDuel, I think.
So a couple other things I guess I'll bring up. Enough Aaron Jones talk. I mean, again, I don't know if he'll be complete chalk because people will drive that narrative, but I like it a lot. Madison, I'm not going to talk about it. 7,200, whatever. I mean, it's probably a lock, I would assume. Granted, we get that news. Mike Davis, obviously, you brought up 7K, still probably fairly cheap. I keep going back to this Robinson dude for Jacksonville. I mean, home game against the terrible Lions. He's in play. I mean, I doubt people talk him up enough to become chalk, but this guy just needs a little bit more respect. And I kind of like that he didn't go off last week against Houston, which he probably should have. He's got to be like your number one main hedge play in a 3-max entry if you don't end up playing him in cash, but he's highly in my pool. You got to talk about Kareem Hunt. I know, let's be real, Pittsburgh's run defense is on another level. And the Browns are working in other running backs, so I don't think he's as much of a need as people think. David Montgomery, we already talked about him. I'm completely done with David Johnson. He's on my season-long team, too. I mean, he doesn't have the juice, dude. He was open for that touchdown in the corner. he just looks he looks old. 5,400. I mean, I guess he's there. And Devontae Freeman's been getting some run, 4,900. There's guys here. And the last guy I do want to bring up, I will consider Ronald Jones. I'll take a harder look at some of his opportunity, unless you want to talk about it right now, Ben. He's playing the snap. He's getting the snaps. He's seeing the target share. I know he's not producing like we want him to, but again, I like that game. I need a piece of that game.
I think Fournette's going to be back, which would hurt Jones for me.
Interesting.
If Fournette was out, then yeah, we would probably definitely be considering Jones. But yeah, dude, Robinson, I never even ended up checking ownership on FanDuel because I couldn't freaking look at it until yesterday. I just looked to see if I won. I think Robinson actually got some ownership last week on FanDuel. I think like him and Mike Davis was kind of like a decision people made, which I don't really understand, but I think people made that decision in cash games. Detroit's horrible against the run, so I do think that's fine. But Hunt, I think, is the guy for me. I was going to mention him, dude. We got to talk about him. So Stefanski all week was saying, like, we're not going to just give Kareem Hunt all these carries because Chubb's out. Like, we're still going to spread it around. But that's not what they did. He got 20 attempts, 3 catches, 4 targets, and if he didn't end up cramping late in that game, I mean, he was going to dominate the touches. Like, Dearness Johnson was not on the field a lot. Except for in the fourth quarter when Kareem Hunt was out for cramping. I don't have the splits pulled up. From what I've heard, apparently Pittsburgh has struggled with outside zone run blocking schemes, which is what the Browns run. So I want to look into that as the week goes on. And, dude, Miles Sanders bust off a 75-yard touchdown run against the Pittsburgh.
Well, he looked good.
Yeah, and he looked really good. So I think Hunt definitely, because we know they're going to use him in the pass game, and we know that they use him. Like, he caught a touchdown in the red zone, like he ran a route. Like, they put him in the slot quite often. So Hunt has to be an option at 6,900, I think, for sure.
It's an interesting pivot off Mike Davis. I mean, if you're not playing Mike Davis in cash or Robinson, I don't know. I just feel like because Hunt didn't do kind of like what you're kind of implying, and he probably should have more. The more people look at the numbers, see the 20 carries, 4 targets. By the way, his touchdown catch, Ben, which I don't understand how that game wasn't on national TV. It was just more local. If you saw it, that was a sick touchdown catch by Kareem Hunt. It was like a wide receiver in the back of the end zone. I mean, he is so good. Lucky to have him. But actually, Ben, the spread, to your point on the zone rush, I have no clue if this has anything to do with it, but I'm just updating the Vegas numbers, and there's actually a lot more money coming in early on the Browns this week. Interesting, kind of look at it. So that does favor Kareem Hunt. All right, let's talk about wide receiver. We'll start up top with your boy. Calvin Ridley made you some money last week. That was probably the plus EV move of the week. I'm surprised not more people did it. I didn't do it. You want to talk about that move in specific, and it could be interesting dynamic. I mean, I have no clue the direction the content industry will sway this week, what we'll do at DFS Karma, but you got to figure that I can't pronounce his name, Zacharias. I mean, I believe he was on every drop back for Matt Ryan last week. So if we stick to trusting #the cash process, you like that, Ben? I would assume, knowing myself, even though I'll get burnt again, I feel like I personally might go back to him in cash games. I know it's so early. I see he's 3,200. I know you will go the other way, and you've done combination of things playing a guy like that and Ridley. I don't know. I feel like, is that a bad move by me in that thinking? And then talk about Ridley, and then let's go down the ladder and what other value you're seeing at wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a bad move at all. He just kind of had that Brandon Cooks the week before type of game where he was on the field a ton and just didn't really do anything. I believe he got an end zone target. I'd have to double check on that, but he did get a target inside the red zone and just didn't catch it. But he was on the field, so I don't think that's a bad move at all. If Julio's out, obviously. But yeah, I was shocked about Ridley, man. Sam and I were talking about it on the Sunday morning stream. We just didn't think people were going to play Ridley. It seemed like they didn't play him the first time Julio was out against the Bears. I thought that there was a chance people played him this time because the matchup was better. But when we got that Houston news on Sunday morning, man, it was like everyone was playing Will Fuller. And I didn't think Will Fuller was a bad play at all. But you have to just bake in the targets that Calvin Ridley was going to see without Julio. And he was like second or third in the NFL in receiving yards coming into that game. Like, it was crazy to me that he was so low owned. If you look at the 2 games Julio's out, I think he has over half the Falcons' air yards. about 30% of the targets. So if Julio's out, I'm playing Calvin Ridley again. I know I never say a receiver over 7K is a lock because I like to spend down, but if Julio's out, I don't know how I don't play him, man. I mean, Devontae, I do think is going to be back at 8K. So that creates a situation where you say you want a piece of that game. I mean, do you want to play Devontae? Because I think he's going to be back, and they just have no one else to throw to. I think it was like a hammy maybe, which does worry me a little bit. But he's been out like 2 weeks, man. Like he's been out a while, and I think he practiced yesterday.
Tampa Bay can be got in the secondary too. I feel like that's the way to attack them. I don't know, man. I keep going back to Aaron Jones. I just have a scary feeling if I fade him in cash, it might not end well. But I got to get a piece of the game, and I guess if he plays and I like the injury report update and I don't see anything catastrophic to make me think, otherwise, so far the only injury report that bit me in the ass this year was that George Kittle thing on Saturday night, like 3 weeks ago. So, if he's in, I'm going to take a hard look at playing him and probably, again, I don't know which way the industry is going to go, but if I'm pronouncing it right, Zacharias, I can envision myself going back to the well there. I mean, you gotta think how these defenses, like, at the end of the day, Zimmer is a good D coordinator. I don't know if he controls the talent, right? He's not the GM. I would assume that they bracket Ridley. I mean, if you just watch the film, Ridley's the guy that's really the only explosive player that's going to burn you if Julio's out. So I don't see why that wouldn't be the case. Again, Ridley's going to get his. I'm just trying to think narrative-wise why I want to pay down and save at 3,200 and then have money to spend elsewhere. So enough of that. All right, so we talked about some of the high-flying guys. Anyone else kind of in the mid-range? And then, of course, everybody wants some lower price type wide receivers.
Yeah, I think a couple of these guys in the upper 6K range would be in play. Like if Godwin's out, Evans is 69. Like we would have to consider him. Like that could be someone I play instead of Ridley if Godwin's out. So that's a situation we just see. Juju, I think, is in play at 66. The Browns, obviously, we know could get beat over the middle of the field. So I think it's a really positive matchup for him. And 66 seems a little bit too cheap. So I'd be fine with him. Devontae Parker, I think you could stack with Fitzmagic if you want to do that route. But I was looking at Galladay at 6,200 against Jacksonville. Seems like a really good play, in my opinion.
That is pretty cheap, actually. He's burnt me a few times in the last couple of years as well, surprisingly. I mean, I still buy the talent there. But, yeah, I mean, 6,200 does seem pretty cheap. And ironically, when we talked about the opening, I mentioned that as the third game that we might want to get some kind of piece of. Like, it never really works out perfect, but it'd be nice in theory to get a piece of each of these games. That's something I like to do with my main build. So I like that a lot, actually. I think we need to monitor the Pittsburgh situation, which I'm sure you'll do in the content, as well as Discord, because I totally agree with you. I think one of my favorite plays of the entire slate, depending on who is going for the Steelers, is Juju Smith-Schuster, who you already mentioned. I think he's potentially a cash lock if, Ben, you give us the green light saying he will be playing the slot this week. I want to know when the injury news comes out on Deontay Johnson and what the shuffle is going to look like. Whatever you project, Ben, whatever wide receiver for the Steelers projects to run in the slot, I know last week in specific, but it was due to injury with Deontay Johnson. I know Juju was in the slot like 95% of the snaps. So if you can confirm for us later in the week, I will probably try to find a way to play Juju in cash. I don't think he'll be popular in cash. 66 might be a little bit pricey relative to like a Galladay you just brought up, but I'd be willing to pay the extra $400 to go down this continued stream of targeting the Browns in the middle of the field. I mean, it's like, I know we'll get to tight end too. We can talk about Ebron, but we're due for the Juju blow up. And frankly, I hope I don't even know what Chase Claypool's pricing. I mean, I hope people play him. I will not play Chase Claypool in cash games unless you tell me otherwise, Ben, that he will be in the slot for a majority of the game. That is the information I need from you this week.
Yeah, Claypool's 5,200, but yeah, Juju's the slot receiver, for sure. So, I honestly I didn't really think about it, but yeah, getting off, like, I'm not saying I was going to play Galladay, but that price is interesting. But only a couple hundred more to get to Juju. I do think that's probably a strong move as of right now, honestly.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm a firm believer. I already have a bet on the over in this game. I mean, both these teams stout, somewhat ironically, even for the Browns against the run in a way. And frankly, James Conner, like, he's a jag, dude. Like, every time I'm watching him, yes, he does have games where he's like, wow, he actually got 100 yards and a score. I get it. Steelers are historically a good team, but it just seems so plotting, right? You know what I mean? Like, he's so – I just think this game could potentially shoot out, especially the way that the Browns are starting to show that they can potentially play in different situations. And that's why I like that game a lot. So Juju will monitor that. I don't think he'll be popular in cash games. That's my early pivot of the week if I can get to one. All right, anyone else in the lower type pricing range? I mean, what do you want to talk about these Carolina receivers? I mean, they're the same price every week, right? $5,900, $6,000. I mean,
yeah, I still think I'd rather play Davis there because this isn't a game like last week where we want to jam in all the pieces of the game. But, they're both really good. Anderson still seems to be the guy. I know DJ Moore finally scored last week, which is huge for me because I have him on a ton of season-long teams in Dynasty. But it still seems like it's Anderson if you want to do that. But, like, Galladay's cheaper. Juju's a couple hundred more. Justin Jefferson, $6K. I'd rather play him. A.J. Brown is $5,600. He is going to play tonight in their game. So I'm positive that projection systems will love A.J. Brown because they're going to bake in the historical data. He had a monster year last year, 5,600 against Houston. He's going to be one of the highest owned, or like at least projection wise, he's going to be one of the highest owned receivers, I think, at 5,600.
It's a good call. And shout out to Sam there, who's been developing our projections portal. I mean, you're right. Like, we'll probably see that in our projections, which kind of goes, depending on pricing, the way it comes out now, Wednesday evening or something like that on our website. So that'll be kind of cool to check out, see where he falls there. It's a good point. I kind of personally overlook him at times as well. I got a guy, Ben. I'm just kind of going down now. Again, I'm trying to fill into the same narrative of like the games I want to stick in this week. Now I'm having a brain freeze as far as the good cornerback in Green Bay that we want to technically avoid. I know that's not how we should always think. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but here's a guy. How about Scotty Tuhati? Shout out to our boy Matt, who claims he'll never play him again, which, I feel the same way, but here we are. I'm looking at Scotty Tuhati. I mean, 4,200. I'm just saying, if you build a lineup and you really like it, sometimes you just got to play guys that have burned you a few weeks ago, and I'm looking at Scotty Tuhati, Scotty Miller. I mean, 4,200. This game has – I mentioned I want pieces of this game. I mean, this game has firework potential. And I know that, again, Ben, please correct me. I don't remember his name, the good cornerback right now out of Green Bay. Let's be real. That guy's going to be on Mike Evans or Chris Godwin.
Yeah. First of all, I don't know. I'm kind of echoing Matt in this whole thing of like probably never playing Scotty Miller again. But I think if Godwin was out, I would be interested in that because if Godwin plays, he's going to be in the slot. In which that case, I would like Godwin because Godwin's like 64 or something. Godwin's too cheap if he's playing. Yeah. So I would be interested in that. If he's out, I think we could probably look at Scotty Miller. I don't know. I mean, that's pretty cheap, man. I know, and he did score in that last game, right?
I thought Scotty was playing more in the slot.
Yeah, well, Godwin's going to play in the slot if he's in. But with him out, then they put Scotty Miller in the slot. Because last week they didn't have Justin Watson either. So they put Scotty Miller in the slot. They had Mike Evans on one side, and they actually let Tyler Johnson play, and he was on the other side. So I think Watson will be back, which could push – if Godwin's out and Watson's in, that could push Miller outside, and they would put Watson in the slot. I'd have to go back and look at what they did the first game Godwin missed where Watson played, because I do think that may have happened. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait later in the week and see, who's all playing. Godwin, I think, could legit miss again, though.
Interesting. All right, let's real quick, before we go to tight end, we got to wrap this up here. I just want to point this dude out. Jeff Smith, I played in one of my 3 max entry lineups. Bro, I can't tell you how tilted I was because I actually had another pretty good week in tournaments. Nothing crazy, but I was cashing with a bunch of GPPs I had going. And Jeff Smith was in one of these that made a lot of sense the way the game theory was, in my lineup. Obviously, I pivoted off of Zacharias. He had 11 targets last week, but he only had 3 receptions for 23 yards. And I'm telling you, every time I saw some kind of highlight or something, or looking at my app on my phone, he was targeted in the end zone. I don't have that in front of me, but I know it was at least 2 or 3 targets in the red zone last week. So, man, at 3,000 against Miami.
Dude, 11 targets is insane.
It really is.
I know. Especially if we play Fitz, kind of have that on the other side coming back. I cannot believe I'm saying this. I cannot believe that. Yeah, I mean, I can't believe it, but he's probably in play, honestly.
Let's go to tight end. Who are you looking at?
Yeah, tight end. So last week was weird, dude. We got this Kittle chalk. I couldn't believe it. I feel like
I played.
I know you played him, but I just thought it was interesting. I don't know. I don't spend up for tight end in cash. I just thought it was interesting that it went that way. FanDuel's different because the salary's looser, so people will always kind of spend up for tight end there. But I mean, you have Andrews against Philly, who sucks against tight ends. For tournaments, I think that's a great move, but I don't think I can get there in cash. I think that Ertz at 5K historically would be a lock, but he's so dusty, I cannot play him. I mean, 1.6 points last week when they have no receivers is just egregious. So I will never play Zach Ertz again in my DFS career. The reason I wasn't going to mention Juju at receiver is because I like Ebron again at 4,100. Had that really big drop or fumble, whatever it was. I think it was a fumble late in that game. But, I'll always target tight ends against the Browns. He's involved in the offense. Had another 6 targets last week. So I do think Ebron's in play. If the tight ends are out for Houston again, I think Fells is in play again. I was kicking myself because I debated Ebron and Fells on Sunday morning. Went with Ebron. Fells, of course, scored. If the tight ends are out again for Houston, I do think Fells will be in play at 3,800, and he won't be as sneaky because he scored last week.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, again, it's pretty simple. I think for me this week, it's so early to tell, but I just love Ebron as well. I mean, I really do want to play Juju. I'd love for the stars align. Again, keep me posted in Discord and with the content. But yeah, I mean, let's be real. 4,100. I thought his price might go up a little bit against the Browns, so I'm taking a hard look at him. So. Defense, Ben. Let's finish up here for the people. You know me. I got to take the start on this one. I got to do it. I'm probably playing Cincinnati. 2,100. I've been paying down every single week, and frankly in my GPPs as well. So as of now, I'm playing Cincinnati 2,100, and I don't care what they do for me other than give me 5 points.
Yeah, I think that would make sense. Tennessee is 2,800, and we know Watson, obviously their line struggles. He could take some sacks. So I think Tennessee's fine at 28. I think the Dolphins at home at 29 against the Jets are fine as well, honestly.
All right, Ben, any closing thoughts? I thought that was a good podcast. Again, there's kind of a lot in shuffle. I know it's let's be real, it's COVID 2020. Games change on the fly. Everything changes on the fly, which is why we always go back to just stay tuned to the website, dfskarma.com, for all of our DFS stuff, betkarma.com, all the betting stuff. And again, the most value-add product on the site, in my opinion, is Discord chat. You get real-time information. It's faster than Schefter. I don't know how, but somehow I'm getting updates in Discord faster than I need on the Twitter sphere. So good luck this week, people. Let's talk next week. Hopefully everyone comes away with a big win. Thanks. See ya.